Welcome everybody to the Steve and Bobby Show. My name is Steve Williams, of course, and I am here with Bobby Bliatu. Welcome, Bobby Bliatu.
What's going on?
Bobby Bliatu, the man, the living legend. Anyway, let's talk about in this segment. We're going to talk in this segment about kind of like some of the stuff that's going on economically here. We kind of touched on it last week, and we little bit touched on it the week before. But it seems that we are in this continuous path of where we don't know what's going on.
Uncertainty.
Uncertainty. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there's things that are going on that are actually kind of scary. I know a lot of people. I used to do this where I used to judge the well-being of America's economy through the stock market, and I found out later that is not how that kind of works. It's only a small, minute part of it. But I think it's kind of interesting of what's going on. I kind of want to touch on this. We're going to look at this first video that's pertaining to another segment of it, which is job losses. Let's look at that, and we'll discuss it on the other side.
For what is likely to be more alarming news on the economy, an economy already devastated by the coronavirus. The Labor Department will announce weekly unemployment claims momentarily, and they are expected to be in the millions, even more than the nearly 3.3 million announced a week ago. That number was more than 10 times what we've been seeing in recent years. It was nearly 5 times the all-time record. Over the course of the entire Great Recession, a decade or so ago, about 8 or 9 million jobs were lost. We lost a third of that 2 weeks ago. In a moment, we're going to find out what the loss was in the following week, a time period during which the number of states that had shut down all but essential businesses only grew. At this moment, 4 in 5 Americans are in a stay-at-home, shelter-in-place state of mind. They are not spending their money, and businesses are laying people off by the millions.
So not a good thing. Now, here, I have a friend that's in the trucking industry. And he used to always tell, I was in logistics as well, too. When I retired out of the military, I went into logistics and worked for a very large firm. And I remember they used to always say that you can judge the economy by the freight it's moving. So depending upon your train movements, what's your inaugural freight that's coming out of these ships in the Bay Area, the company that I worked for did all that. And you could kind of tell, a lot of these speculators could tell from the freight that's coming in what the economy is going to look like 6 months out. Mm-hmm. Or, you know what I mean? So, and he was telling me, I think in February, it was already dropping.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have, but it's hard to tell from that point because we had a lot of stoppage of stuff. Yeah. Because of the virus.
From China at that time.
Right. And so that's why everything was empty. At the docks, we've seen videos at the docks, everywhere else it was empty. Mm-hmm. And so, but those are key indicators of a drop, and we had significant drop. Mm-hmm. When we look at what's happening with the job losses right now, it's because people aren't buying, people aren't spending. However, a lot of these companies, have gotten the PPP loan. Mm. We've seen them get the payment protection, right? The program loans, right? Mm-hmm. And the only way those will get forgiven is by the amount of payroll they have, right? That's what they got.
Right. That's right.
If they furloughed or in July they don't have those employees, that number of employees, they lose the forgiveness as part of that grant.
So it becomes a loan rather than a grant.
Right.
Okay.
And now they got to pay that stuff back, which makes it harder for them. Mm-hmm. Everyone's going after it so they don't have to pay it back. Mm. So what's going to happen? In July, you're going to see these people hiring like crazy. Mm-hmm. Even if it means that they're going to fire in September. I don't know. But I mean, hopefully they don't have to. Hopefully everything comes back. But they will be hiring like in June for sure.
A lot. So next month.
Right. They will be hiring just so they can get a forgiveness on their on those loans.
On the loans.
Yeah.
I know that during this pandemic thing, I never realized that there was a difference between furloughing in a company aspect and laying somebody off and then that person going on unemployment. They both go on unemployment, but I guess when you furlough somebody, they have the option, the company has the option to pull that employee back at some point. They just don't need them at this particular moment.
Right, you're still an employee.
Yeah.
That means your benefits are still going, your insurance is still going.
You're just getting unemployment benefits.
Right, because unemployment, a lot of people don't know, is that when you have a reduction in hours, you can get unemployment to help you because you had a lifestyle that was dependent on that fund. So if you were a 40-hour employee full-time and then all of a sudden you move down to 20 hours or 25 hours, for those 15 hours a week that you lost, you can actually claim unemployment and then get that fund.
Okay.
Well, not the whole, but based on your state, you will get a portion of that to help you out because you probably depended on that fund.
Yeah.
Right, and they'll do that for you, and that's what unemployment's for, and that's why when you get furloughed, you can get unemployment.
Yeah, and I know, not to throw conspiracy theories out there because it's going to sound like this, but I know, like, for example, the state of Florida has made it extremely difficult for a lot of its, I have a lot of friends that are out in Florida that have been laid off, and they cannot get unemployment. I mean, they've been trying, the system has been down.
Yeah.
It's been, I know that they're talking about Scott, the ex-governor, made it very difficult, put some things in the law. Now they're seeing where DeSantis is doing basically the same thing, where it's making it difficult for a lot of these people to claim unemployment. By the time you're able to claim it, they're hoping that's why he's reopening the
You just
state.
had 3 million last
Yeah.
week unemployment. I mean, the claims are like
Staggering
like
numbers.
30 million people.
Yeah.
How do you actually keep up with that?
Yeah.
I mean, if you really look at it, you'd have to. I don't. If it took you 20 minutes to do a claim times 30 million, that's a lot of
Yep.
phone time or a lot of time on the computer to do something. And I know it takes longer than 15 minutes to process a claim.
Yep.
So when you look at all that, it's almost impossible to do. This is a mess. The governors can try to do what they want. They can make it harder or whatever. They're trying to make excuses. But the blame comes back to why this pandemic started and how it's been handled.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm still putting the blame on Trump.
Yeah. It's definitely at the federal level.
Still there. But, I mean, you look at the way the cities are, some of them aren't ready for it. I mean, we have, Florida was a great case where they have a legacy systems where they're going back to an old 80s, 70s, programming language where people don't really understand how to program like that.
Yeah, they're bringing people out of retirement. I know the IRS did that.
Right, because there's programming in COBOL. And,
Yeah, COBOL, that's the
and trying to program in that for what they need, not just understanding the basic parts, but actually doing the stuff that's connected to databases and stuff, is extremely difficult on an efficiency level because the thinking is different. And because of that puts a halt or a delay on people being able to get their claims. So that's the big thing there.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people that I guess the IRS has this thing where you can go check your stimulus, and then people were putting their addresses in, but because with that COBOL language, it couldn't read if it was capitalized or if all the letters were capitalized.
Right. And that's the kind of thing about programming, right? Because people will think, oh, it should recognize it, but it doesn't. You have to program it to. So all of these things show where the system has been broken. I mean, people were not ready for a pandemic. People were not ready for this kind of thing to happen because you just don't think someone's going to screw up the country that bad.
Yeah, the failure is magnified in it.
Yes.
Trump. There's no doubt that this. I just saw a doctor the other day was talking that probably a good portion of the United States would have gotten this either way. It's the way it was handled at the federal level that it could have been a lot smaller and handled a lot better. I mean, everybody continuously complains about the Ebola crisis, the H1N1 crisis, and the way that was handled. Well, the reason why people weren't fanatic about it was because the administration at the time, and in reference, a lot of the governors handled it pretty well. I mean, there was a very good team in place to where it wasn't, we didn't have someone in the White House just denying it.
Right. Oh man, but the right wing media attacked Obama tremendously.
remember that.
All fear tactics. It's so scary. How can we trust him? We're gonna die and all this stuff. And look what's happening now.
Yep.
Look what is happening now. I mean, the last segment we saw people try to say it's all a hoax and that things are just going to be inflated and move forward. But we're not inflating these things. And things are happening. And everyone's going to know somebody who passed away from COVID-19. Everyone's going to know someone who got sick and quarantined with COVID-19. And your opinions will be different about this when that happens.
And when you have an administration that just in a dramatic fashion just does not know what it's doing, has no clue what it's doing, it just tears the economy up.
Right, and that's why it's hard to choose people that don't have experience.
Yep.
These are jobs in which you don't have time to learn, right?
Yep.
And
you have to be a good and quick learner, and the presidency is a very selfishness type of job. There's a lot of things that you're gonna, not selfishness, I guess that's not the word I'm looking for. There's a lot of times when you're doing that job where you're not gonna be rewarded for the things that you do. You're gonna do a lot of things that people are not gonna know that you did that worked out well, right? You can't be a narcissist that continuously wants to be gratified all the time and be in a job like the presidency, because that's just not what the job description
not in a
is.
democracy.
And not in a democracy.
Right, in a democratic republic like we are, you can't do that.
Exactly. So I want to go and I want to put a video that we had the other 2 weeks ago, I think it was, or a week and a half ago, on how the Dow Jones and its dramatic drop, and we're going to kind of discuss that. It's going to roll into something else, but I want you guys to remember, the audience out there, to remember what was going on out there, so you understand. Take a look.
That's the closing bell on Wall Street as we are watching the end of trading today. Right now, the Dow is settling down somewhere in the down 2,300 range, ending a grim day on Wall Street today. At one point, trading was even halted because of such a quick drop. We're going to go over to Chief Business Correspondent Rebecca Jarvis, who's here with me right now to try to make sense of this all. Rebecca, we saw this circuit breaker kick in this morning. Trading resumed. It doesn't seem to have helped a whole lot. And then we got a move by the Fed as well. I know there's a lot to unpack there, but let's just start by what you make of this closing.
Well, this is a historic closing, down 10%. We have not seen that for a very long time in the markets. It will be the worst day this year, but the worst day for many years for stocks. And what Wall Street is contending with right now is the reality that is unfolding before all of America. And that is the stark choices that are being made in communities across the country between public health and the economy.
So that day was scary.
Very scary.
When it dropped
10%,
and then to watch it go down. I don't know how many people out there have 401k plans or whatever. I mean, it's very scary to even look at it, right? But at this time, the stock market is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everything, everyone's looking at treasuries and, bonds and so forth and trying to find a way out of it. And, most of us aren't, Wall Street type stockbroker investors and don't want to pay money to brokers to do things because, they're the ones who only win.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so we're kind of just at limbo and just watching these things happen.
Yeah.
Right? And hoping that the future will change and things can bounce back somehow, right?
Yeah. And I think with a sporadic type of Wall Street or when you have issues like this where the stock market is fluctuating like this, I know the very first drop we had was due to oil. Right now, people don't even realize right now that Russia and Saudi Arabia are fighting right now. There's a big oil. That's why your gas right now is $2 a gallon.
You mean it's not COVID?
It's not COVID-19.
It's not COVID?
No, sir. No. But there,
a lot of people are saying, "Man, COVID made gas cheap."
It's not that. It's Russia fighting actually the OPEC nations are fighting, and I guess Russia has a different quality of gas. From what I heard, oil pumping their quality is a little bit different, supposedly, than Saudi Arabia. But what's happening is, the United States, in case y'all didn't realize, pumps a lot of oil, a lot of their own oil. In fact, 70 or 80% of their own oil now is being pumped here in the United States. What's happening is those oil companies are going out of business. They're actually having to pay people to buy their oil right now. I think it's like -$4 to these companies or whatever, a barrel. So it's actually costing them to pump oil here in the United States just because of how cheap it is in these other two countries as they fight it out. When that happens, and a lot of people are like, yay, gas is $2 a gallon or whatever. That's actually not a good thing, because now you're going to see where that is affecting here in the United States. And what that does is it really starts to hurt the economy. And then when you see, you're going to see 23, we had 3 over 2,000 drop in the Dow Jones, okay, and the DJI and all these other markets. Yeah.
But that's why we go solar. This solar or renewable
California's already on
energies,
its way to that.
do all that other stuff. We don't need to depend on what other countries can, do to us, like what's happening now.
Yeah.
When we had no say in the war between Saudi Arabia and Russia,
Yeah.
and how much oil they want to produce, killing our market, right? And
Tearing it
so
up.
don't need that oil. Just saying.
Here in California, actually every new house is built They built you got to have a solar panel
Yeah.
on the new home. So.
Yeah.
Or it has to be only 20%. So anyway, the reason we brought you that video is to move on to this other video that we're going to have right now pertaining to the shrinking U.S. economy and how much it shrank. Take a look at this video, and we're going to talk about this on the other side.
A very dismal first quarter report on U.S. gross domestic product. We had that number turning negative for the first time since 2014, and that drop was the most since late 2008 in the first 3 months of this year. So it's worth repeating that headline number. We had first quarter GDP on an annualized quarter-over-quarter basis declining 4.8%. That was worse than the just 4% drop expected. We did have a rise of 2.1% in the fourth quarter of 2019. For personal consumption, remember that the consumer spending aspect is 2/3 of economic activity. That was at negative 7.6% for the first quarter, also much steeper than the decline of 3.6% expected.
So huge shrinking economy at 4.8%. We had some huge drops in the market, even though that market's fluctuating. It's changing daily, all the time, but large, sometimes 5% or sometimes 5%, 6%. At some points, even like the video we showed you, it's at 10%. And then we have devastating job losses. Now, in pertaining to the job losses, yes, that has greatly to do with this shelter in place and the COVID-19 and all of us trying to stay healthy as much as we can, because that's important. Some states are taking this very seriously. We have other states that are not taking it so seriously. That, in fact, today, as of today, I think, what is today, the 1st of May, there's states opening up, like Georgia and Florida and some states in the Midwest that have decided, hey, we're just going to open up. So you're going to start seeing probably an increase in some of these COVID cases, right? And then what you're going to have is a whole different cycle, and it's going to hurt economically because it's going to have to be reported. And when you're losing tens of thousands, we're losing at an average 22 to 2,500 people in the COVID every single day. 2,000 minimum people every single. That's insane to me. And I know, people love to. I hear this all the time where they're comparing the flu with the COVID-19. It's so frustrating when I hear that because it's irrelevant. Because it doesn't matter if it's comparable to the flu. It's something else that is comparable to the flu that's a problem. Do you understand? It's like, hey, there's two cars on the road. That car's going to get in an accident, but this car's going to get in an accident as well, so who cares? No, it's important that both cars are in a dang accident.
There are more people dying a day due to coronavirus than, I think, opioid crisis, car accidents, gun violence, and the flu combined.
Altogether.
Yeah. Per day.
Yeah.
Right? If we stopped right now, so you have February to 29th to May 1st, which is almost exactly 2 months, right? In those 2 months, we've had the same amount of deaths as like a flu does in an entire season, an entire year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's more than that. It's nearing the entire year of opioid abuse, right? Overdose and deaths.
Yeah.
So it's a lot.
Yeah.
We can't keep this up, right? And so we have to be safe, folks. Stop comparing this to other things and just be safe.
Yeah.
And everything can open up if we are safe. But when it comes to our economy, I mean, it's being safe. We didn't build our stores to be safe.
Yeah.
We didn't build our Walmarts and stuff to be safe. We built them for maximum occupancy.
That's right.
We didn't build them for 6 feet apart. So that's going to have an effect on the economy. And what is that going to be? We can open it back up, and everyone's going to cram in there again. And I don't feel. We saw the beaches in California. We see what's happening in different areas of the cities where people are not being safe. And when we open up again, people are not going to abide by the rules, which is, it's their prerogative. But then, if those numbers rise, now what kind of psychological effect will it have on people in going to the store? Will they not go anymore? I mean, we saw how scary it was when it first started. People didn't want to go to the doctor. People didn't want to go anywhere. People had, heart problems, and they still wouldn't go see the primary care provider, right? People needed things, and they didn't want to go anymore, so they hoarded and grabbed everything and did that and brought it back. If we open up irresponsibly and the community is not responsible, if we see a rise and a huge peak, of which I hope we don't, I hope enough people have learned. But if we do, then you're going to see that scare come again.
Yeah. And the fact that COVID-19, it can happen again. So it could be a seasonal thing. So it's looking as though that this could be a seasonal flu, it's seasonal like the flu, right? So. So what you're saying is you have the issues, for those of you that are comparing the flu, you have the issues of the flu that happens every year anyway, right? Now we're talking about something else that we're going to have as well. So even comparing the two, to me, it just makes no sense. That we just have to be safe, because what's going to happen, this is going to tear our economy up. I mean, you see the numbers here. The numbers are real, and you see the effects of the economy. And I'm telling you, a lot of these, when that many people are getting sick and that many people are dying, we need to take precautions for that. And who knows on the second round how that's going to affect us? Nobody knows, because this is all new. COVID-19 is fairly new. It's 4 or 5 months old. So and the amount of people it's killed is high. It's very high, and we don't have a vaccine for it. We don't have anything for it. So a flu, at least, if I get sick and I got the flu, or I get a high fever, or I get something, I can go in and get a vaccine for it, and in general, that'll help me. Or I can take, there's things that I can take. You get COVID-19, boy, that's a whole different ball game. They're like, man, you need to go wait that out at the house.
And that's why studies have showed everything is working. Everyone's trying to win the Nobel Prize for finding the thing.
Yeah.
So, but the truth is, when we have a vaccine, you'll see these numbers drop. In America, there's over 1.1 million people who have been infected. There are only about 150,000 recoveries. And of those 150,000 recoveries, you have to include on top of that over the 65,000 of the ones that have died. And what's happening is, if you just look at the cases that are completely over with, we're still at a 30% death rate.
Yeah.
That is high.
Yeah.
And we know a lot of those 1 million will recover without being, without any complications and not dying, is what we're seeing, and we're hoping and predicting that. But we can't know that for sure. What we do know for sure, it is at that 30% death rate, because you can only say those that have finished with COVID, those that have been done with the case of COVID, and it's pretty darn high.
And then, and the fact that, Trump keeps touting the fact that the United States has had the most tests than anywhere in the world. But I saw a doctor the other day that's thought that was absolutely ridiculous, being the richest country in the world. I think we're at 3.4 million or 5 million tests or something like that, or 3.4 million tests. That's only 1% of the United States that's been tested.
Right, and the thing is,
it's insane.
We are not just, upset about the amount of people who are infected, right? That should have stopped. But the tests don't stop the growth of deaths.
That's right.
And we have the most deaths than any other country on the planet. We make about 1/3 of all the deaths. So I think it's 1/3 of all the deaths.
Something
right?
like that. Something in that
so
area.
but the point is, it's too high, and testing isn't going to do anything with that, right? Just get out there, get in front of it, take care of things, and make sure these governors listen to that plan, because there's a lot of folks who are not listening to your 14-day plan, right? Or your plan that's out there, because your plan says when there's a decrease in new infections and a decrease in deaths, then you can start to open up in the other phases. And some of these states are not doing that. They're seeing peaks, and then they're opening up. It's still going up, but they're still opening up. They're having the worst day, and they're still opening up. It doesn't make sense.
And then when you have, you have your population, a lot of this population getting sick, they're going to be scared to go out, and again, it's going to hurt the economy. It hurts the economy in a lot of different ways. If it's handled right the first time, you take that hit, take your bangs in the beginning, and then you ain't got to worry about this cycle of having to handle another, huge wave of sickness that's about to happen again. Last week, when we were in our show last week, they were just releasing the second stimulus, and it hadn't passed. I think it passed late, either Friday morning or late Thursday night. I can't remember. Where some of these businesses weren't even getting or say, for example, and you mentioned this last week, actually, before it was even said, where they were talking about where you didn't know, none of the business individuals knew where to go get these loans, or they would go get these loans and it was out of money.
Right.
No, they didn't have enough money. You discussed that last week, and you actually touched on it the week before that. So they passed another stimulus package, right? Because of course the economy is crazy. 4.8% shrinking economy, job losses all over the place. We showed you the Dow Jones. Now you have this new stimulus package to try to help. I think it was $480 billion to help some of these businesses. Take a look.
Congress approving another $484 billion for loans after the first round of funding ran out. But new reports claim at least 75 publicly traded companies, some worth more than $100 million, cashed in on the first payout.
The intent of this was for business that needed the money.
While Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin insists those big businesses will pay that money back. Trump called out one institution in particular.
I'm not going to mention any other names, but when I saw Harvard, they have one of the largest endowments anywhere in the country, maybe in the world, I guess, and they're going to pay back that money.
But Harvard is now denying the accusation, insisting the funding it got did not come through the Paycheck Protection Program. This as new concerns surface over the application process for the program.
So you saw, that at least our legislatures are doing what they're supposed to do. At least that.
Okay, so we talked about this many times, and the first time we talked about the stimulus package, I went through and I read it.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be for 500 people or less, companies with 500 employees or less. And I did tell you there's some sneaky language in there where bigger companies can actually take loopholes and actually get this with the right lawyers.
Yeah.
Right. And apparently they did that, and a lot of big corporations, publicly traded companies, were able to get this funding, be able to get this loan. Right, which took away from some other folks. And we talked, I wish that in this thing it would have set aside based on size and need, but there isn't. It's first come, first serve. People can get in, and I can't say this time around because I knew how competitive it was, because I knew what I know about what's going on and who's applying and who's actually allowed to get it. That I've been beating down on my relationship broker, at the bank, and I even tried some avenues with another. I'm still going through one of them right now, and I had a huge hiccup. It was a password issue, no one to call, but that got resolved last night. So we'll see how that goes, right? To see if how this comes out, because in my mind, if this is like you should automatically get it, right? But going through this and working with my community. Right, the stimulus package works. It helps us, get this fund, put it back into our employees, be able to continue moving the companies forward as we expected. That's what it's supposed to be for. Not everyone's going to spend it that way, right? But it's supposed to, stimulate the economy continually and keep people paid, and so they can do different things. Because in order to get forgiven, we just talked about earlier, you got to kind of have the same amount of employees come July, right? So, or else you'll be penalized. So. When we look at this, I've found with trying to help folks get this loan, we have a lot of farmers here in the Central Valley, a lot of small farmers whom use contracted labor work, right? So they don't have employees.
That's a good point.
They're themselves. They go to the farmers market. It's themselves that's going over there and selling and doing all that stuff. They are being told, or they are being explained to, that this is only if you have employees. It's your Paycheck Protection Act, and they don't get paychecks, right? Because they're sole owners of the farm, and they're doing stuff at farmers markets. So they're not getting these loans, and they're not applying for it. They're not trying, and so they're being weeded out in this system of how it's being presented, right? And so I've been talking to different folks about how we're going to get them to apply, how we're going to get them to do it, because I'm going to tell you, when you tell someone to apply for the PPP, like, nah, I got to put all this paperwork through, and it's not even for us. I don't even have employees. It's not even worth it. They're not going to give me anything. We'll just get denied because everyone says that. That's what they're told, and that's why they won't apply. Even when you tell them different, a little bit different, because I'm just one person. But this has to, these programs that are out there, in order to stimulate the economy correctly and not let the poor go poor, right, and not let the middle class change classes to poor because they got no funding, if we're going to do this, we got to do it right.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, I just think $6,700 for everybody would have been better.
Yeah, you had mentioned that in the beginning, where every individual, some of these businesses, like you were mentioning, don't even make that in profit at the end of the month anyway.
Right.
So, and I think with the what you're seeing, what you're talking about right now, even reflects on the $250 billion on the stimulus that each individual got, the $1,200. Mm-hmm. There was a lot. I had a friend of mine, a Marine friend of mine, that he's a 100% vet, right? Like I am. He's a 100% disabled vet, but he thought he just didn't get it at all because he didn't file no taxes. And I'm like, no, you do get that. You just have to put your information in there. And then he told me, well, they already have my information because my direct deposit goes in there. You still got to talk to the IRS. They're trying to work this problem out. This goes to people that get SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance, and SSI, Social Security Insurance, period, which is income based. All of those combined, these people did not know that they could go, and if you're what they call a non-filer, you can go in there, click the button as a non-filer status, and then you could put your information in there. So he didn't know that. Mm-hmm. Had no clue on that. He just thought he didn't get it because he didn't file taxes, because he heard always on the news that if you file taxes 2018 or 2019, you're good. So he was just thinking, hey, I don't file.
Right. and coming from a place like Fresno, California, here in the Central Valley, we have a lot of people who don't speak English.
Yes. Right. Yeah,
put that other obstacle into it. Now you have a whole bunch of other people who didn't apply for it.
That's right.
And where's all this money going to go?
That's right.
You just heard Donald Trump talk about Harvard having to pay the money back. It's a loan. They're going to pay it back, right?
Yeah.
But these companies are getting those funds, and if they paid that fund back, let's just pretend they just returned everything that was loaned. They're not opening that back up to other folks. If short of a second stimulus, they would not have seen it. So if they pay it back in like 5 months. From now, are they going to reopen that back up to other people? I don't know if they got like $8 million. Is there going to be $8 million more for people to apply for? Probably not. So these things are still done. It still closed the market on us being able to get something. Have your good story making people pay it back, but it does nothing for us Americans.
And Nancy Pelosi is talking about another $1 trillion package that she wants to put through. I know she's writing that up now. I don't know when they're supposed to be presenting that.
Yeah, and what do you think about that? How can we keep doing this?
This is the thing that just flabbergasts me on the issue of, for example, the ACA. What was the original cost of the ACA back in 2000?
No, I don't.
Do you remember?
I don't remember.
I think I couldn't remember if it was $700 billion or something like that. It was in my terms. I was like, wow, that is kind of a lot of money. But we need it because I'm a universal health care guy. I'm a social program guy. I believe we should have that. But I was thinking, that's kind of a lot of money because we were so conditioned from the right to believe that $700 billion, we just don't have that. And they were crying and crying about this for the whole 8 years of President Obama. And this is one thing, Thom Hartmann talks about this all the time, where Republicans, as soon as they come into office, spend. As soon as Democrats come, complain about spending, because they don't want social programs. So, this is what we're seeing. I don't know where they're going to pay for all this junk. That's six. If they have another $1 trillion.
Just remember that. Where are they going to pay for all this stuff? Just think about that right there. Where are they going to pay? There's no paying.
Yeah.
They just
print the money.
They just make it. They
the feds
introduce
print the
it
money.
To cover the cost of what has to happen.
Yeah.
And you think about it. Those two doctors that we talked about yesterday.
Yeah.
Those two doctors talked about Sweden and all these places that they didn't have a shelter in place, but they kind of did. They didn't have a lockdown, but they had the shelter in place kind of rules, and they closed down big congregations of folks, and they didn't allow that to happen. At the same time, they also have universal health care. Everyone has it. We could have took the $3.5 trillion and paid for all that stuff and continually let that happen and let everybody open up their businesses with respect of following these new rules.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
With the ACA too, here's a crazy thing. With the ACA, it was just an option. So you could, they were pressing this false information on I know we're getting off subject here, but it ekes me because we're talking about 1 trillion, 3. What was the last one?
2.2 trillion.
2.2 trillion. They just invented that money. Prior to that, the feds gave the banks 2.5 trillion the week and a half prior to that, or 2 weeks, whatever it was.
Yeah, when we had that big drop.
Yeah, so what they do is they just put this junk in a computer and they invent the money, and there it is. There's the money, just right there. And I know that they say that they're going to pay this and they're going to pay it back, and okay, so that's just their plan. But anyway, all of this affects the economy, all of it. Okay, all this crazy stuff with the 4.8%. I mean, this stuff is really serious. Our economy is really in trouble.
Well, but that's the point. I mean, that's the point that I've been trying to make with a lot of folks is, look, we have to have a plan and follow that plan.
Yeah.
We have to be united and follow that plan.
Yeah.
And every governor is doing something different.
Yeah.
The president can't control what the states are doing. Look, if we're going to open up, we open up, and we got to be safe and have a standard, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't know this, because look, I Rhode Island. When you go to Rhode Island right now, if you flew in, you have to quarantine yourself for 14 days. That's what they require. 14-day quarantine.
State does.
Well, I don't know if it's a state, or the city.
Where do you get quarantine at?
I don't know. So the thing is that we all have to do these things together so that we as a country can move on one particular plan. And that's what we have to do, okay? And so the president has to make up his mind on how things are going to work. That's it. I mean, and if you're wrong, you're wrong. But that's why, you get gray a lot faster than, most people do. You age in the presidency because everything's your fault. And you got to do that. You got to make the decisions. And so, making the decision on how much we get, making the decision on when we open, making the decision on giving the governors what they need, and playing hardball to do what's best for Americans, not just businesses and corporations, but all Americans in all aspects of life. It is your responsibility to execute the law in that factor, right, in that fashion. And so that's what you do. And we know the president knows how to do it. Because what's he doing now?
He actually initiated the Defense Production Act on a meat plant, or meat plants,
right,
with an S.
Because meat is very important. Well, it is to me, but it's very important.
So, I mean, if you haven't heard, I mean, we discussed this last week with the Smithfield meat production plant, where they had to shutter a lot of their plants because so many individuals in there were getting COVID-19.
Right.
And that's a scary stuff especially when you're messing with meat, and that's not good. So what Smithfield did was they shuttered their facilities because, I mean, this is a potential lawsuit that could come back and haunt them like crazy. So, and I think they're looking at that in that sense. But Donald Trump did the Defense Production Act on some of these meat plants. Take a look.
Kelly, earlier today, President Trump said that he was planning an executive order to maintain the U.S. food supply chain. And now Reuters and Bloomberg are reporting that the executive order could come as soon as today. And in that, the president will mandate that meat processing facilities remain open. The executive order will use the Defense Production Act to make sure that they do so, and will also outline some guidelines for how some of these plants can continue their operations safely. This comes, of course, Kelly, after multiple outbreaks at facilities owned by Tyson Foods and Smithfield Foods, and an executive at Tyson warning that the food supply chain could be broken because of hundreds of employees being sick and plants forced to shutter. But the White House is going to take matters into its own hands and invoke the Defense Production Act to make sure that that supply chain goes unbroken.
So Donald Trump and this is what I find funny about Republicans, right? So this is another thing, and I know this is terrible because I'm talking directly to Republicans, some of you out there. The fact that, why you look? Is there, well, I thought there was a Republican over there. So, they are. They believe that we're capitalists. We're capitalists.
Yeah.
We run off the capitalism system here in the United States. Okay, which is money, corporations, and those corporations determine how they want to run their businesses as long as it's deemed legal, right? As long as it's not illegal types of businesses. And the way, when you think in those terms, is Republicans don't like thinking in a government. They want less government, right, and more states' right. Usually, that's what they're promoting. Usually, this is why I find this kind of fascinating, the Defense Production Act. And I realize that a lot of presidents have used this.
It's for the best interest of the country.
Right.
Right. And him taking the stance that meat production is very, very important, and that he's going to force them to stay open. I mean, they're coming up with plans, so we don't know where it's at right now.
Yeah.
But the issue here is, I see this as an attack on unions. That's what I see.
Yeah.
See, a lot of these places, they have safety
That's a good
standards.
point.
They do. And a lot of
Yeah.
these places, these big factories, they're unionized.
Yeah.
And these workers are saying, hey, you're putting us in danger. And the union is speaking out, saying, hey, look, we can't work in these conditions because it's dangerous. Period. I mean, there's no way for them to be 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
Right here, locally, we forced Amazon to be 6 feet apart, I think, and they kind of violated the rule, and then they had to follow it, right?
at
at our local plant here, and so they're following it, which means they're, I guess, producing less when you do it that way, and so they're going to have to find ways to do it at the plants, and at the plant, they're like, you know what, we can't, so let's close. But when you say no, you stay open. You tell those, you know, look at him. He's trying to tell those unions,
Yeah.
you know, to bite one. This is an attack on the unions. This becomes something political
You know, now
at this particular point, because that's why they're closing, because of the safety standards.
So you're saying that Amazon they had to do 6
6 feet apart.
That is why I did not get my Maverick Pro blades. My Maverick Pro blades, Amazon, are 6 days late. So you guys need to put like maybe one more in between the 6 feet. I need to get my blades so I can do my safe distancing. Oh, talking about that, Newsom, Gavin Newsom, because I was just going to talk about going to the park and fly my Maverick Pro. He's going to be closing beaches.
Yeah.
Because he was furious at some of the.
Think about it. I mean, everything's closed, and he's like, okay, we're going to open up. I think everyone's safe, right? He's hoping that our community is going to work together in means of saying that, hey, you know, we're going to be safe when we go out there. And he opens it up, and look what everyone does.
Yep.
You know?
He's done really good in the state.
And
I
so-
mean, he's kept the death counts low. He's kept the infection rate low, or at least the death count.
In comparison
to a big
you know,
state
other
like,
places, you know.
like New York. And I realize there is a difference in the way we live. New York, they're on top of each. I do get there are differences. We're pretty spread out here in California. We're pretty, you know, our cities are real spread. Like the city we live has got over 1 million people all together if you count all the little
All the
neighborhoods,
counties, yeah,
all the county,
county, yeah.
and we're pretty spread out.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at us in the air, you look like,
Yes.
you know. So I mean, I get Trump's situation here where he needs to open that. I just find it fascinating that it's a Republican president doing it, because I know this is some of the things that they don't like is government in there. Because look, think of the protests right now, right? The protests right now are these individuals wanting to make their government open up their state at a state level, right? And then Trump is wanting to open up these food plants.
Right.
So I think it's, you know, I don't know. I find all this kind of stuff kind of troubling in so many different ways. And I mean,
That's right. Look, open up. Everyone wants to open. No one wants to close. We want everyone to be open.
Yeah. But we want everybody to be safe.
Yeah, you also want to have employees. You also want to have customers. You also want people to be, you know, able to come in.
Yeah.
And that's what we're fighting against. And we hope, I mean, and almost we all believe and have faith and know that a vaccine or something is coming. And we are waiting for that to happen. Until then, we have to be, you know, we have to take caution, right? We have to be very cautious in what we do. Opening up, we have to, right? We can't starve. We don't want to starve. We want everyone to be working, but not at the, you know, danger of public health and safety. And so find ways. Don't contribute to it. I mean, don't fight it, right? I mean, this is something, it's like the shoes on the other foot. When we talk about oppression and stuff in the other shows, like, you know, I'm not saying, you know, just do what the cops say.
Yeah.
But
You have
I think
rights.
some of you understand what I'm saying here. But this is something that's affecting everybody.
Yeah.
Your choice affects everyone around you. Okay? You're going to go out to the beach. You don't know if you have it. You're going to affect a lot of other folks. And it's not outside on the beach. It's when you go to the restroom. It's when you go to the convenience store to buy something. It's when you come from out of town, come into the convenience store, and they don't clean that counter fast enough for someone else to, for someone else to come by and swipe it up and wipe their nose and catch this disease. That's all that it really is. And when we have a treatment for it, we'll see this thing go down, and we won't even care. Right? The flu, we know it's there. If the flu is the flu, that's what we think of it. But I'll tell you, 1918, the flu was not the flu.
No. Millions of people died.
Much dangerous. Much more dangerous. And it's different. And so this one will be something to just become a memory. But we are in a time right now where we're going to look back and see how we handled it. And, you know, it's bad. we have no way out. Let's not make it worse.
We have to, we just have to get together and make the right decisions. We have, I guess we look at it this way: if the majority of the people, we already know majority of the people want to go back, but if we want to be safe, if we want our kids to be safe, we want our grandma, grandpa, our aunt, our uncle, if we want them to be safe and they're important to us, we need to do the things that keeps them safe. It's real simple. It's not really that hard. I mean, this is simple stuff. I mean, this is, they have a famous saying in the Marine Corps: is they keep it simple, stupid. Keep it simple, stupid. I mean, if we need to be safe, but we need, and in reference to all of this as well, we have kids out of school. We have people that, I feel for you because I know there's a lot of people. Our income in my family is not affected by the COVID-19. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. It's not. Neither me or my wife's.
Yeah, you're privileged.
And I know.
Yeah.
Actually, I am.
I am too.
I'm privileged.
We everything that we're doing is essential.
Yeah, and I understand how my viewpoint may be different than someone that's working that 9 to 5.
Thank you.
You know what?
Yeah, no, that's honest truth though.
And I get it, and I understand it. Believe me, I do. I have a daughter that is going to school, but she has a job too. She has a job at the school, and it affected her. A lot of that job was like her, what we call her sport money or whatever you want to call it. Her where she went to the movies, where she, that kind of their little spending money, and she didn't have that anymore. And she said, "Oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do here." I was like, "Girl, you lucky. You're lucky because you have parents that can help you out." I realize that not everybody's privileged in that sense, and I get it.
And we're fighting for you.
Fighting for you.
We're
every
fighting
single
for
day.
you.
I want
if they're going to put stimulus packages out, they're going to put PPP loans out, all that stuff. Get it.
Yeah.
Get it. Go and do it. Comment here. We can try to help point you in the right direction because we're fighting for you. We're trying to make it so you can open up your businesses.
That's right.
So just, what's the answer right now for what you do? Make sure everyone you're around is safe. Because when the politicians and our leaders can see that people are acting safely and those numbers are dropping, they can open everything up because they feel that everyone's going to act safe. They just need that faith. Do that. Because they don't want it on their record to have the highest amount of deaths in their county and in their city, right? So just
be safe.
Be safe. And tell everyone around you, be safe, okay? Because you don't know until you lose someone. And you don't want to lose someone.
Definitely don't want to lose somebody. Well, I appreciate everybody for watching our show here, the Stephen Bobby Show here in wonderful Fresno, California. We're in the heart of the state of California. Fresno's actually in the heart of it.
That's right.
And we
not the armpit.
We're not the armpit. No. So when you go by here and you smell chicharrones or whatever, that's not us. And the fact that
I love Fresno.
I actually do.
I love the Central Valley.
Yeah, I love it here. I've lived all over the country and I love it here. I always end up coming back. But anyway, I appreciate you guys for watching. Make sure that you tune into a lot of the Mad Talk. There's a lot of Mad Talk content that's out there. If you tune into the Facebook page, the Mad Talk TV Facebook page, tune into that. We got a ton of shows. We got something that's going to interest you, from sports to just all kind of stuff. We have tons of stuff. You go in there and you check it out. Anyway, share, like, make sure that you put
comments or anything that you want us to know. Tell us who is wrong, who is right, where you're at. And I saved the best for last before we say goodbye. Happy birthday, Shyla. It's my wife's birthday. Happy birthday
to you, Shyla.
I love you, babe.
Happy birthday to you.